What's going on, guys? This is Joey. I'm coming at you another video today. Today I'm going to be giving you guys an update on this week's progress. On the last video I mentioned that I was going to give you guys an update on the discus tank, so I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a quick update on this tank first. When I initially started the tank, it was a high-tech tank with CO2. It had some pretty rare slash higher end plants in the tank. But as you can see here, I converted the tank into a low-tech tank without any CO2. There was a couple factors in converting that. One, I needed to use the CO2 system for the rack outside. And two, I was going to remove the driftwood in this tank because they were running into the driftwood and kind of hurting themselves occasionally. So that I knew I was going to remove. And then from there, since the CO2 system was gone, I couldn't keep some of the plants that I had in here that was running CO2. So I ended up having to move those plants into the rack outside and some other tanks around here that had CO2 systems running. And the other thing was I wanted to see if the fry would do a lot better without the CO2 being a parameter or being an issue, a possible issue. Not saying that you can't do it. I've done it in the past where I did grow fries up to about a quarter size in a planted CO2 tank. But for some reason this paradiscus keeps eating their eggs. I'm trying to figure out why. So the plants right now I have in here are jungle val, some crepes, and I also have the Iguzu 2009 sword that was in my 60p. I started with one plant, I split into two, and then I split that into three, and then I took one of them that was in that tank that was getting ready to split, and I split two of them and put them in here. The sword is becoming one of my favorite swords. I really like the veins on the plants, and it's just super green, and it's more compact versus your normal others like Amazon sword or whatever, because it grows tall and is kind of bushy. This one's more like low and kind of like compact, and it's a lot nicer, I think. And as you can see behind me, they're spawning already. They tend to do this probably every 2 weeks or so. And this time, I'm gonna let them spawn, I'm gonna let them fertilize the egg, and then this time, I'm actually gonna cover the eggs and see if they don't eat the eggs or their little fry when they actually hatch.
Whenever your heart is broken, don't ever forget you're golden. I will find a light in your soul, I'll be there. Never leaving you in the darkness, even when you're out of focus. I will be the light in your life, you'll see it clear.
So last week on the blue rack had some traces of nitrites, which is a great sign because that means the system is cycled. Throughout the week, I tested the water again and again just to make sure that the levels wouldn't spike all the way up or it's kind of like spiking down. So it actually spiked really high. It actually spiked to a bloodshot red color, which is like over like 160 ppms. So the color is just like super red and just super max in terms of the chart. So really the only two choices I had was one, let the plants try to take care of that, or two, do water changes. With such a high level of nitrites, I don't think the plants can absorb that in like a couple days or so. So I went ahead and did a 25% water change. Now that 25% water change did absolutely nothing. It didn't even phase the tank at all. It was still 160 ppms when I tested it like the next day. So what I ended up having to do was a 125 gallon water change, which is ridiculous because it took a lot of salt mixing and a lot of RO water to mix up again. A couple hours later, I tested the water again, and finally the nitrates actually dropped down to 20, maybe 10 to 20 ppm, which is a staggering drop considering it was like 160 plus ppms before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure the system is stabilized and actually, kind of levels off in that level. But right now it's good for me to add in the snails because the tank actually started to grow a lot of algae, and that's normal for a new tank. I'm going to go ahead and add in some turbo snails and also add in some other snails that I had picked up and kind of threw in my other reef tank just for storage for now. But I'm going to let the snails do its job and actually start cleaning the tanks. Most likely I won't be adding any fish or livestock other than snails for probably another week to make sure that the system is actually stabilized and it's not going to spike any more than what it already is. And then from there, probably next week I'll be adding the first fish.
I'll be your inspiration, 'cause I know that you'll do just what you're told. I'll be your heart and temptation, 'cause I know that you'll make it on your own.
on to the green rack. So the green rack, I moved the CO2 system from inside out, hooked it up. So right now I have it pretty dialed in right now. I basically had to crank it up to its max, counter or bubble release. And I had to move the PSI to around 12, which is not that high. Generally I run these other tanks inside around 9 PSI, so it's not that much more. This is an inline CO2 system. There is no diffusers in here. Basically, it just gets pumped into the return line and it gets mixed in the tubing and then gets dropped back into the tank. So I was dialing in the CO2. I also put in plants on one of the tanks because I actually had lights in those. And as you can see, I have a variety of different plants that I'm going to be growing. Again, not all of them are going to be in this specific tank right now. It's just because I only have enough light to light up one tank. I'm still waiting on some additional funds and whatnot to get the other lights, and that probably won't come until probably another month or so. And then from there, I will probably propagate and move some of the plants to the other tanks. And if you're curious, the tank is still cycling. It still has some level of nitrites in the system, and it's on the purple, like the very low purple end. So probably another week and that tank will be cycled, and I'll probably do a 50% water change or so and add in my first fish. Then a quick update on the quarantine tanks. The rainbows and the one swordtail in there are doing great. They've been eating, they've been coloring up, and actually what's surprising is it looks like one of the rainbows are already trying to spawn, like one of the males, and it's kind of like rubbing against the moss that I had in there with the female. So maybe they're actually laying eggs already, which is surprising. So in the reef tank, I end up losing 2 clownfish due to an early shipping order. Again, like I said, last week I was not expecting them to come in, and that tank, by all means, is not capable of housing that many fish. So what I ended up doing was doing a water change every other day to help the parameters stay in check, and for the most part it did. But some of the clownfish did not like it, and actually I ended up losing 2 of them, and it's not too bad considering how much fish is in that tank right now. So hopefully next week the blue rack is good to go, and I actually can move some of those fish into the actual rack system so that the bilos can actually grow in that new rack system, and also it can free up some space for some other fish to be quarantined. So right now what's left over in terms of the fish room build, everything for the most part is, built, running correctly. I still need to do some wire managing, putting it up, zip tying it and whatnot, and then kind of laying out the wires correctly. But also I need to really clean the garage out. I ended up having to lose like half of the garage, and I condensed like all of my junk into the left side. I really need to clean it up so I can actually walk down the middle lane without having to run into stuff. So hopefully I can get that cleaned up so that I can actually use my skate box. If you guys remember, I was doing an aquascaping for fun video, which I really want to do, but because all of this junk is kind of in the way, I can't set the tripod up to actually skate correctly and actually record the box. So hopefully things get cleaned up in the next couple weeks so I can actually start scaping and doing some different and unique stuff. Alright guys, and that's a quick update on the projects and also on the fish room. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's update. If you guys aren't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe. And if you guys want to be notified of any other new videos that are coming up in this channel, make sure you guys hit that bell button below. And until next time guys, peace. Oh wait, I almost forgot something. We hit 5,000 subscribers. Thank you guys for your continuous support on the channel. I appreciate every view and every sub. So there will be another video coming up soon. I still haven't figured out what I want to do, but there will be a contest, obviously, as always. Make sure you guys stay tuned for that. And until next time guys, peace.